Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jelly Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader, as always.
So, here we are in 2012. What new possibilities await us in Monkey Broadcast this year? Well, in my case, it's starting the first show with a badly timed cold, so yeah, if my voice sounds weird, you'll just have to deal with it.
Well, if it helps any, you sound better than you did during the update video.
Yay!
And hi, everyone! Welcome to the first episode of Monkey Broadcast for the final year of history! Woo!
Dun dun dun!
Sorry, I just had to get that out.
Yes, we all have to accept that the world is getting around, and it's certainly not because the Mayans are lazy to count past 2012, and technically the Mayan civilization is extinct, so it's not like they could add a few more years, but whatever.
Yeah, it's not like the Spaniards came along and murdered them all before they could finish their calendar.
Yes, none of that happened. The world is definitely going to end. And on that cheerful note, let's move on to our first section. Q&A! Title says it all. This is where we answer questions sent to us by our fans and subscribers. If you'd like us to answer your questions, please send them to us via YouTube PMs or leave a comment on this video. Our first question of the month comes from SpyroCrash19, and he asks, what were your least favourite and or most disappointing games?
Huh. Good question.
Well, I think we've already covered worst games we've played. I remember you went on a rant about Shining Force Neo. Was it
Yeah.
Shining Force Neo? That might have been voice acting, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that was just voice acting, although it wasn't a very good game otherwise.
We've already done worst game before. I've been bringing up several games, including Sonic Drift. Okay, so most disappointing. Okay, well, I'm just going to ignore the Forbidden 3 from EGT because that goes without saying. I wanted to enjoy all three of those games and they failed. If I had to pick one, I would say the most disappointing game, probably Shadow Dragon.
I do see where you're coming from with that, but please elaborate.
I think mostly just because, well, by that point, Fire Emblem had pretty much reached a high standard. I think we had just come off of Radiant Dawn, which I think you and me can agree was one of the best games in that entire series.
Yeah, most certainly. Even if the support system was utterly murked, it was still an awesome game.
Yeah, definitely. So, we were kind of on the high of that, and this was the first game in the series. He had Marth. This was literally the first time we had seen Marth in the West outside of Smash Bros. Brawl, or any other Smash Bros. Game, kind of think of it. It was this glorious moment where we could see the story that set up Marth. We could see the game that started it all. Unfortunately, it was just crap.
Yeah, and I think, what they did wrong. They took a game made in 1990, 1992. They took it and made it a straight port to the DS with a graphical upgrade. They did not bother to update it at all. They did not bother to jiggle with the story, give other characters development and, a point.
Yeah, well, actually, you're right. They did do all that. But when they did update the game, they went about it in such a weird way. Like, they did add chapters and characters, but the requirements for getting them in the side quests was basically having your ass kicked.
Yeah, they were rewarding people who were terrible at the game.
Pretty much. This isn't bragging rights here, but I managed to play through the game without getting any of those side quests. So for me, it's just like, well, they didn't add anything except for a really, really mind-numbing tutorial.
Pretty much. What they did add made no sense, and really, what point was there to the class change anyway? That just gives other people an excuse to break the game. And, and the changes they didn't make, there's a laundry list. Because even though it was the game that started the entire series, I can't help but think, 1990, that's 22 years. Holy crap, Fire Emblem is old. That's 22 years, and apparently, even though it was Intelligent Systems, they weren't as good back then, and the game did not age well.
I'm telling you to use the Yahtzee quote. There's nothing sacred about gaming design from the past. It's just old. That's really all it is.
And that's actually really true.
That's the main problem. I think the only other game I would encounter the most disappointing is Final Fantasy III, but I won't go into that because it was exactly the same reason. It was an old NES Final Fantasy game, done up with prettier graphics, and you had 3D models and you could walk around in those classical music, but the gameplay was still not that good at all.
Well, I also see where you're coming from with that game, but then again, I played all of the beginning.
I got as far as the final dungeon, and then I thought, no, piss off, I'm not doing this anymore. Just because the difficulty curve went up such a ridiculous spike when you got to the final dungeon, it was insane.
It's... To use another Yahtzee quote, and this comes at a very fitting time, ironically, the difficulty curve is so extreme it has a fucking overhang.
Yeah, that's definitely the best way to describe it. But okay, one last quote, because me and Sven talked about Shadow Dragon before in our Fire Emblem talkthrough, and we actually had a comment from Roy Havenstone too, which also equally summed up the game best. Someone once described Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon as intelligent systems taking a skeleton out of their closet, painting pretty pink flowers all over it, and using it as a Thanksgiving centerpiece.
Good one, Roy.
Yeah, that would be my answer. Do you have any other games you want to throw in the pile, Sven?
Yes, it's very, very fitting that you should bring up Final Fantasy III. Final Fantasy XIII. That is all. Although the new one doesn't actually look that bad, which makes my legendary "what" reaction kind of moot.
Well, here's hoping 13.2 does better than its original, because, yeah, I know a lot of people who had extreme hatred for the first one.
Yeah, and just to go and list off a few of my problems with it: linear dungeons, no character development, hope in general, and pretty much the fact that the game has nothing of the Final Fantasy spirit I actually liked.
Yeah, I can understand all of that. Like I said, I really wish I could comment, but I haven't seen much of Final Fantasy 13 myself, except for like the first 10 minutes of the walkthrough, and even then, my first instinct was just how much magic babble they're gonna throw at me in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think you're actually lucky in that regard, because you didn't have to put up with an entire game's worth of, well, hope.
Well, I may have to at one point, it depends how many requests I get to review that game.
You poor sod if you do. Our next question comes from, well, that's fitting, Roy Havenstone too. And he asks,
is all of the commentary in the talkthroughs improvised, or do you go into each talkthrough video with at least a faint idea of what you're going to talk about, so as to avoid awkward silence when possible?
Do you want to answer that, or shall I?
Improvise, we don't plan out in advance except the actual recordings.
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part, when it's the two of us together, we improvise, mostly just because, well, it's better to come up with banter that way. If we wanted to avoid the awkward silences, we could watch the video once to see if there's anything we wanted to bring up, but then again, when we try to plan, most of the time neither of us knows what the other one's going to say, so it's kind of difficult in that regard.
Yeah. If we were planning out commentary, I doubt we would ever get such gems as Beware the Purple Shorts.
Yeah.
Or the Roy and Ellie Wood thing.
Or Donkey Kong with a mullet, no thank you.
Or DK Punch.
Yeah, like Sven says, when we're together, the closest thing we plan is the actual when we're going to record, but most of the time it's improvised. Solo talkthroughs, on the other hand, it's a mix of both. When I record the footage, I occasionally like watch through it once and try to think of, okay, is there a specific joke I can make here? Like, with the Minish Cap and Mega Man 2 walkthroughs, you can see there are moments which I have scripted to, like, specific points. Like, in the first part of the Minish Cap, where I'm basically making up the dialogue for all the soldiers as they're trying to restrain Batty and failing miserably. That part is planned beforehand. So in that case, it's half planned because there are specific moments I've done, but the intervening parts, that tends to be improvised, and it's also coincidentally tends to be the part where I stutter over myself quite a lot.
So, basically, things like, no one can stop me. Oh, that's planned.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a short answer. When I'm alone, I plan parts of it. It's when we're together, it's purely improvised banter. Although, that said, it does kind of heavily rely on the game in question, because if it's Fire Emblem, we do occasionally have awkward silences.
Yeah, you can see that a lot in our old Fire Emblem 8 videos.
Oh god, yes. I mean, we could do a little bit more planning, but I know Hellfire Comms, Basically, to try and get the best commentary and do multiple takes so that if they think that's a dead point, they just stop and just start everything again, which, okay, that does lead to some really good commentary, but it drives some people mad. And yeah, I don't think that's the type of style I can work with, at least not for commentary. Honestly, mostly for fun, I'll be honest.
Yeah, and that's basically the whole point of commentary. Fun for us, fun for you.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. And that concludes the Q&A section. Okay, now I did record a review of Skyward Sword, but I'm not going to broadcast it now for two reasons. First off, I want to cover it in a video series I plan to do later on, so I want to save my specific thoughts and opinions on it for a later date, but I will say it is pretty good overall. And second of all, real life left me with very little time to edit this, so this is one way I had to cut it. And to be honest, it's a good thing, really, because me and Sven kind of got carried away and said a few things that we probably shouldn't have, so it's much better that we leave it like...
Hey, Jonin! I've got a few clips here, and it's from the bit you didn't include in the broadcast. Might as well share them with the audience. I'm just going to plug them into the machine here.
No, wait, don't! There are two games which have, let's just say, a substantial fan backing. As such, there are various fan bases duking it out for which one should deserve the title of Game of the Year. There's obviously Skyrim, which I have yet to play, and I'm almost terrified of playing it because I know I'm going to lead into a review. And,
yeah,
let me...
I was once going to play Skyrim like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee. Fuck me, I can't believe I just said that.
I'm getting really sick and tired of those jokes. Plus, there's a series I watched called Extra Credits. It wasn't even like, oh my god, this game is the worst thing ever. It's just, this 10 minutes could have been better. And the entire YouTube comments are filled with people claiming them how their opinion is apparently invalid, or that they mispronounced all of these names. Clearly, they have not played Skyrim yet.
Oh my god, fanboys already. Well, then again, like I said in the background, the Elder Scrolls series has a very dedicated fan base, or as I like to call it, a very dedicated nerd base.
Yeah, that's the thing, but obviously, like I said, there are two games with dedicated fan bases this year, and thankfully I have played the second one. Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
AKA a game that I never actually thought would receive as much hype as it did.
It's Zelda. You honestly thought a Legend of Zelda game, a Nintendo game, would not be hyped.
Oh, I knew it was gonna be hyped, but just not as the greatest Zelda game ever.
This is something that happens nearly all the time. I mean, there was a time when Twilight Princess was supposed to be, quote, the Zelda everyone wanted, unquote. You know, it's...
Well, yeah, but the hype for that died out pretty quickly. Although then again, I guess this hype will peter out eventually. I mean,
yeah.
You can't obsess over a Zelda game for too long.
I'm sure people will try. Anyway, the point... This is not a review of the Legend of Zelda fanbase, it's a review of Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword.
Yeah. Just like this was not a review of the Skyrim fanbase, thank God, because I would be ranting for hours anyway.
Would I say it's the best Legend of Zelda game ever? Nah. I'm afraid it has a difficult milestone to beat. And by that I mean Majora's Mask. Ocarina of Time is just overrated. Anyway.
And now the fanboys will line up to piss through your letterbox.
In fact, I think I see flaming torches and is that an arrow?
Duck, man, duck, keep down and do not get back up.
Message for you, Sven. You son of a... Back to the broadcast. Please don't kill me.